He walked into the barbershop with his head held high, only to be humiliated, mocked, and thrown out in front of dozens of customers. The reason? A red MAGA hat that sent the barber into a rage, completely unaware of who the man really was. When the truth came out, everything changed. What happened next will leave you speechless. Rain poured relentlessly onto the bustling streets of downtown Chicago. The city was alive with the cacophony of honking cars, splashing puddles, and hurried footsteps. Nathan Prescott stepped confidently through the glass doors of an upscale barbershop, the red MAGA hat on his head standing out like a beacon. His presence immediately demanded attention, not for his polished demeanor or tailored overcoat, but for the bold letters emblazoned across his cap. Inside, the shop exuded luxury. Glass walls gleamed under warm ambient lighting, and sleek black-framed mirrors reflected the meticulous movements of barbers expertly working on their clients. Everything about the place screamed modern sophistication, from the minimalist decor to the soft hum of indie music playing in the background. The moment Nathan walked in, the room seemed to pause. Clippers hesitated mid-buzz, conversations quieted, and heads turned toward the new arrival. The atmosphere shifted palpably as the bright red hat became the silent center of attention. A young barber named Jake, easily the most outspoken and self-assured in the shop, was the first to break the silence. His sharp jawline and perfectly groomed fade matched his stylish black apron adorned with silver chains. Jake leaned casually against his station, his arms crossed, a smirk playing on his lips. "Hey, man," Jake called out, loud enough to be heard across the shop. "This isn't a political rally, you know." Nathan, unfazed by the jab, removed his damp overcoat, hanging it neatly on a nearby rack. He walked calmly to the receptionist's desk, his boots clicking softly against the polished floor. "Name's Nathan Prescott," he said, his voice steady and professional. "I've got a 10:30 appointment." The receptionist, a young woman with a nervous smile, glanced between Nathan and Jake, unsure how to proceed. Before she could respond, Jake pushed off the counter and strode over, interrupting the exchange. "Whoa, whoa, whoa," Jake said, raising a hand dramatically. "Do you even see what you're wearing? We don't serve people like you." Nathan turned to Jake, his brow furrowing slightly. "Excuse me?" "That hat," Jake shot back, his voice dripping with disdain. "It's a symbol of hate. You can take it off, or you can take yourself out the door." Nathan's gaze swept the room. Some clients whispered among themselves, others avoided eye contact altogether. A few had even pulled out their phones, discreetly recording the confrontation. "I came here for a haircut," Nathan said calmly, his tone firm but unthreatening. "Not to debate politics." Jake laughed, a short sarcastic burst. "Yeah, well, you can leave your Republican nonsense outside. This is my chair, my rules, and I decide who gets to sit in it." Nathan held Jake's gaze for a moment, his expression unreadable. The tension in the room thickened as clients shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The receptionist looked down at her computer, pretending to be busy to avoid being drawn into the standoff. "Are you sure about this?" Nathan asked, his voice quiet but deliberate. "Absolutely," Jake replied, his smirk widening. "You're not getting a cut here. End of story." Nathan glanced around once more, noting the uneasy looks from the other barbers and clients. Without a word, he turned and began walking toward the door. But as he reached for the handle, he paused, looking back over his shoulder. "All right," Nathan said, his voice calm yet carrying an edge. "Have it your way." And with that, he left, the shop's door swinging shut behind him, leaving an uncomfortable silence in his wake. The clients resumed whispering, and Jake, clearly satisfied with himself, laughed and muttered, "Good riddance." But if Jake thought that was the end of it, he was about to learn just how wrong he was. The tension in the barbershop crackled like static electricity. Jake, emboldened by the stares and whispers of a few similarly disdainful clients, turned up the heat. His voice cut through the uneasy silence, loud enough to ensure everyone heard. "This," Jake sneered, gesturing dramatically toward Nathan's MAGA hat, "is exactly what's wrong with people like you. You think you can just walk in here, Flaunt that nonsense and demand respect? Supporting that garbage and expecting us to just play along? Nathan didn't flinch. His calm demeanor seemed to amplify Jake's frustration. Standing tall with his arms relaxed at his sides, Nathan replied evenly, "All I asked for was the service I'm willing to pay for. Is this how you treat your paying customers?" Jake smirked, glancing around for support. A couple of clients nodded approvingly, clearly enjoying the spectacle. Sensing an opportunity to escalate further, Jake strode over to his workstation, grabbed a hairbrush and held it up theatrically. "You want respect? Here's what I think of that," he shouted, tossing the brush into the trash can with a loud thud. The display drew a few chuckles and gasps from the audience. Jake's grin widened as he turned back to Nathan. "So, what's it gonna be? Leave now, or should I call the cops and let them escort you out?" Nathan remained still, crossing his arms over his chest. His composure was unshakable, his expression calm but deliberate. "Are you absolutely sure?" he asked quietly, his voice carrying an unmistakable edge. "That you want to take it that far?" Jake's smugness only deepened. "Oh, I'm sure," he said, leaning back with a cocky grin. "Go ahead and try me." Meanwhile, across the room, one of the quieter barbers, Carlos, leaned toward his colleague and whispered under his breath, "Does he have any idea what kind of trouble he's walking into?" "No clue," the other barber replied, shaking his head slightly. "But this is gonna get interesting." The murmurs in the room grew louder. A man sitting in one of the waiting chairs, clearly uncomfortable with the situation, cleared his throat and spoke up. "Hey, maybe we should just let him get his hair cut. I mean, he's not doing anything wrong, right?" Jake spun around, his fiery glare landing on the man who dared intervene. "If you've got a problem with how I run my chair, you can follow him out the door," he snapped, his voice sharp enough to cut glass. The man fell silent, his cheeks reddening as he shrank back into his seat. Jake, satisfied with his dominance, turned his attention back to Nathan. By now, several customers had pulled out their phones, recording the confrontation. The low hum of murmured comments filled the shop as people whispered their opinions on what was unfolding. Jake's voice continued to dominate the space, each word laced with arrogance and disdain. Nathan finally moved, taking a slow step toward the door. His measured pace only added to the growing tension. He reached the handle, pausing for a moment. His hand rested on the cool metal as he turned to face the room one last time. "All right," Nathan said, his tone steady but laced with something ominous. His eyes met Jake's with an intensity that sent an involuntary shiver through the room. "Have it your way." With that, he pushed the door open and walked out into the rainy street, leaving a palpable silence in his wake. Jake stood there, basking in what he assumed was his victory. But the other barbers exchanged knowing looks, sensing that this wasn't the end. If Jake believed he'd won, he was about to learn the hard way just how wrong he was. The next morning, the barbershop door swung open with an authoritative clatter. Customers who had arrived early for their appointments were met with an unexpected sight. Instead of the usual chatter and clinking of scissors, the shop was eerily quiet. Behind the counter stood Nathan Prescott, dressed sharply in a tailored navy blue suit. His presence exuded confidence and command, a stark contrast to the casual atmosphere of the previous day. On the wall behind him, a bold sign caught everyone's attention. "Barbershop closed for restructuring. Reopening in 3 days." Jake burst through the door moments later, his face a mix of confusion and rage. "What the hell is going on?" he demanded, his voice echoing through the silent shop. "Is this some kind of joke?" Nathan turned slowly, holding a folder of papers in one hand and his phone in the other. A calm smile played on his lips as he faced Jake. "Oh, you haven't heard," he said, his tone almost amused. "This place is now under my direct management. As of last night, I am the owner of this barbershop, and every other one in this chain." Jake froze, his face draining of color. "That's impossible," he stammered, struggling to process the words. "I've been working here for 2 years. You can't just walk in and take everything." Nathan raised an eyebrow, unimpressed by the outburst. "I didn't just walk in, Jake. I've owned this chain from the beginning. Yesterday, I was here as a client, but now... He motioned toward the new sign on the wall. Now, I'm here as your boss. Or should I say, former boss. Jake's jaw tightened. You don't have the right to do this. You can't just fire me because of a stupid hat. Nathan tilted his head, letting a brief silence emphasize his authority before responding. You're not being fired over a hat, he said, pulling out his phone and pressing play. A video began to play, the screen glowing with the footage recorded by a customer the previous day. Jake's voice boomed from the tiny speaker, filled with contempt as he berated Nathan, dismissing him publicly and tossing a hairbrush into the trash. The room fell silent as the video ended. See that? Nathan said, locking eyes with Jake. This is just part of the story. The other part is this. I'm giving you exactly 30 seconds to pack up your things and leave this shop. Jake's face twisted in disbelief. You can't be serious. Nathan's calm smile didn't falter. 28 seconds, he replied, glancing at his watch. The customers, still gathered near the entrance, watched in stunned silence. A few of them stifled grins, while others whispered among themselves. The reality of the situation finally sank in for Jake, and without another word, he turned and stormed out of the shop, slamming the door behind him. Nathan adjusted his cufflinks and turned back to the waiting crowd. Apologies for the inconvenience, he said smoothly. We'll reopen in 3 days with a new, inclusive team. And for everyone who witnessed yesterday's events, your next cut is on me. A ripple of applause broke out among the customers as they began to file out, leaving Nathan alone in the shop. He exhaled deeply, allowing himself a brief moment of satisfaction before turning to Carlos, who had watched the entire exchange from the back. Carlos, Nathan said, gesturing for him to step forward. Congratulations, you're the new manager. Carlos's eyes widened. Me? Are you sure? Nathan nodded firmly. You showed more integrity yesterday than anyone else here. That's the kind of leadership this place needs. Carlos nodded, his voice steady but filled with gratitude. Thank you. I won't let you down. Nathan gave him a small smile before turning back to the now quiet shop. This was just the beginning, but he'd already made his point. Respect wasn't optional. It was mandatory. By the next day, the video of Jake's public meltdown was everywhere. It spread like wildfire across social media platforms, racking up millions of views within hours. Jake's face, twisted in disdain as he mocked Nathan, was plastered across headlines. News outlets gleefully jumped on the story, running sarcastic segments with titles like Barber refuses to serve client, unaware he owns the shop, and Barber's bias backfires spectacularly. Comment sections erupted with debates, memes, and jokes. Jake's name became synonymous with toxic prejudice, and he quickly found himself on the receiving end of relentless online ridicule. One meme showed Jake holding a hairbrush with the caption, "When you try to throw shade but end up losing your job." Another read, "Cuts hair, not hate. Guess Jake didn't get the memo." Meanwhile, Nathan seized the moment. Using his newfound viral fame, he launched a campaign across all his barbershops under the slogan, "We cut hair, not hate." Posters with the message went up in every location, accompanied by a promotion offering free haircuts for first-time customers. The campaign struck a chord with the public, drawing in droves of new clients who wanted to support a business that stood for respect and inclusion. Carlos, the newly appointed manager, watched the transformation with a mixture of gratitude and awe. One evening, as the shop prepared to close, he approached Nathan, who was busy reviewing the day's receipts. "Mr. Prescott," Carlos began hesitantly, "I just wanted to say thank you, not just for giving me this opportunity, but for what you've done for everyone here. You didn't just put Jake in his place. You reminded all of us what fairness really looks like." Nathan looked up, his expression softening. "Carlos, you earned this. You didn't stoop to his level yesterday, and that's the kind of leadership we need around here. This isn't just about running a business. It's about setting a standard." Carlos nodded, his confidence growing. "I won't let you down." But while the shop flourished, Jake's life took a steep dive. He applied to other barbershops in the area, only to be met with awkward silences or outright rejections. His reputation preceded him wherever he went, and no employer wanted to touch the man whose face had become a meme for workplace discrimination. Desperate, Jake even tried changing industries, but the story had spread too far. Every job interview ended the same way, with the interviewer's polite but firm dismissal after they recognized him. As for Nathan, he became a household name in the best possible way. Invited to speak on several television programs, he used the opportunity to promote his message of inclusivity. During one such appearance, he wore the very same MAGA hat that had sparked the controversy, pairing it with his sharpest suit. When asked about his decision to wear the hat, Nathan smiled and said, "We can have different opinions, different beliefs. That's what makes this country great, but those differences should never be a reason for hate. Respect, that's the foundation of any good business, and frankly, any good society." The audience erupted in applause, and Nathan's words quickly became a viral soundbite. His shop saw record-breaking foot traffic, and his campaign gained national recognition for its message of fairness and professionalism. In the end, Nathan didn't just win the battle, he won the war. His quiet resilience, sharp wit, and refusal to stoop to Jake's level became an inspiring story for many. And as he continued to grow his business, Nathan proved that standing firm in one's values was the most powerful haircut of all.